in the New Mexico State Senate are extraordinarily lucky to have the person I'm going to introduce right here. He was at Mass this morning, so that's the sign of a smart legislator. It's prayer time, I can assure you, for all of us. I always say we'll take all the prayers we can get, and so certainly that's a sign. He turned 26 last Sunday. That's a big deal. Jacob Candelaria is the new state senator from Senate District 26 in Albuquerque. I've had a chance to work with him over the last number of years. He's been running Equality New Mexico here in the state. He's a graduate of Princeton. He's someone who we have just elected even though he is the youngest member of this new class, we've elected him to be our caucus chair in the New Mexico State Senate. Jacob Candelaria.
Well, thanks, Peter. That was a great pep talk for me. And apologies, for arriving late. I was taking some of the members of my family who won't be able to come up on Tuesday when we start session out for breakfast, and then we went to church together as a family this morning for some of the older members of our family that couldn't come up. Thanks for the invitation to join you. As Peter said, my name's Jacob, and the new senator for the 26th district, and that's on the west side of Albuquerque. It is a great place. It is a high-growth center of the city, but it is a very working-class part of Albuquerque, and that's where I come from. I was born and raised in Albuquerque, raised by my mom and my grandparents, and they worked pretty hard to give me some opportunities in life and to put me on a track that set me, to think about ways that and to achieve things that were just off limits to them when they were growing up. And it's that kind of commitment to service and commitment to giving other people a fair shake, is kind of the framework that I hope to bring and to continue having as I serve. Representative-elect Trujillo, I think was touching upon some of the ideas that will be coming forward this session on economic development and et cetera. And as I've been thinking about these issues going in, I was thinking in the car on the way up how I would really capture this. And the best thing I can say is that New Mexico needs a new Marshall Plan when it comes to our economy. I mean, the times of working on the edges and really just trying to tinker with the details are over. The city of Albuquerque, where I'm from, recent economic reports show that people are leaving that city in droves. We are now the poorest state in the country. We have the highest income inequality in the nation. And in the long term, beyond the fact that I think that shocks the conscience, right? I mean, we can all agree that these statistics are really troubling at a moral and emotional level. Those factors are not the ingredients for long-term economic stability. They're not the ingredients for a good quality of life for our state. They're really something that has to be tackled and has to be tackled now. I think what's concerning to me going into session is that, the governor has introduced a 7-point plan on economic development, and the cornerstone of that plan is corporate welfare. It is it's reducing the corporate tax rate by 50%. In New Mexico, only 10% of companies actually pay the corporate income tax. These are not places like Collected Works. I mean, these are folks who are pretty well off, most likely out-of-state firms. I mean, so I think we need to have a serious conversation about what's the correct jumping-off point when it comes to economic development. And for me, that's supporting small businesses, that's supporting the transfer of technology from our national labs to the private industry so that we attract and incubate companies in New Mexico that aren't going to use water and that aren't going to really have a negative impact in our environment. I mean, those are the constraints we're working in. So for me, one bill that I'll be introducing in that vein is trying to tackle the income inequality issue. New Mexico offers a working families tax credit. So if you're very low income, you get a credit on your state income tax. And right now, the value is about 10% of the federal earned income tax credit. My bill that I'm co-sponsoring with Ed Sandoval, who's the chairman of the House Tax Committee, would increase that to 15% of the value. In my district alone, 6,000 low-income families benefited last year from that tax credit, and it pumped $1.1 million into those households. And that's money that was used to give kids certain luxuries like food, clothing, a roof over their head, and medical care. So I'll be working on that bill. Another area that I think we need to really tackle and get serious about this session is health care. I will applaud the governor for accepting the Medicaid expansion. It was the right thing to do, and I do appreciate that. My concern, though, is how many of us, when we call a doctor, get an appointment within a week or within 2 weeks? New Mexico has one of the worst provider shortages in the country, and recent reports from our own state agencies suggest that one county in New Mexico has enough healthcare providers to meet the need of its population. And I heard it, it's Los Alamos. If you're not in Los Alamos, you are in critical shortage, and the federal government has designated many of our counties as really critical level shortage areas and designated them as federal areas of intervention. And so I think we just start addressing the question, the very fundamental question of, if we are now going to offer insurance and coverage to hundreds of thousands more New Mexicans, which is an amazing thing, we need to be sure there's the people in the doctor's offices to see them. Because if we don't do that, then the federal subsidies that are available for people to purchase insurance on the exchange and the state money we will pay to a managed care organization to cover someone in Medicaid will end up becoming a subsidy to the private insurance industry, because they get paid regardless if somebody comes into a doctor's office or not. And if people aren't getting care, people are pocketing those profits, and our state isn't healthier, and people are still not being seen. The last area I'll touch on is kind of government accountability. I think Peter is doing some amazing work on trying to really trying to figure out really what's a difficult area of law, which is how we keep and clarify our state's campaign finance laws in light of the U.S. decisions on Citizens United that have really, as we saw in the last election, changed the dynamics of local politics and national politics in this country. I mean, who before this last election had seen a television commercial for a state legislative candidate? It's unheard of, the amount of money that is now going to be required to serve in the state legislature. An unpaid position that is really designed to be community-oriented, that grows out of conversations like this. And so I really am supportive of the work that Peter's doing. One bill that I'll be introducing this next session is a Senate joint resolution. And it directs Congress and calls upon Congress to convene a constitutional convention to amend the Constitution to repeal Citizens United. So we'll be introducing that bill this session. The other bill that I'm working on in the vein of accountability, working on with the folks over from Think New Mexico, where I used to work, actually, Fred Nathan's group, is sponsoring a bill, and we hope to get it passed, that says that if you want a state contract or you have a state contract, you cannot make a political contribution to a candidate or to a candidate's political action committee. So, our hope is to have some really serious conversations like this in Santa Fe. We need a Marshall Plan for New Mexico. We need it when it comes to the economy. We need it when it comes to education. And I think it's time to start putting those bold ideas out there, because if we're timid now, and if we don't take control of the debate and articulate a better vision for the state of New Mexico, then we lose something. And I'm afraid of what that will be. So I really appreciate the invitation. Sorry I was late again, so I'm looking forward to the give and take. Thank you all so much.
Nice to hear a little fire in the belly, isn't it? Well, let's... I'll pass the cordless mics to the audience, and I'll let these guys use this one, and let's just start asking them questions. That sound good?